Let's play that music. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to episode 113 of Restitching the Tapestry. It's great to see you. Oh goodness, friends, we have so much to talk about tonight. So much juicy drama and just so much. And I'm excited.
So much drama.
My hair's not out, but I'm flipping it anyway. So but really, it's good to see all of you, and we hope that you're doing well. So let's begin by sharing how we've been doing it, what we've been up to. Ari, how have you been doing?
It's week 9 of my classes out of week 10 because I do Southern New Hampshire University, SNHU, and we have 10-week semesters, and I'm on week 9, and it's the final project week, and I want to die.
Ooh, that's rough.
I met with my professor today, and she was like, "I believe in you and your story," and I was like, because I'm writing a plot bible to a story, and it's I have to put everything together.
That's kind of wholesome that your teacher would say that, though.
I know. She's just like, "You can do this," and I'm like, "I know, but it's so hard." And I'm like, "Can I get weird?" And I was like, "Do I have permission to get weird with my final project?" And she's like, "As long as I can read it."
That's fair. I tell that to my students all the time. They'll be like, what creative freedom do I have? I'm like, you have all the creative freedom in the world so long as you do the assignment based on these criteria, but I have to be able to understand what's happening.
The fact of the matter is, I started talking to her about it, and she was like, "Let me get a reading list for you." And I was like, "Oh God, I'm going to start reading all these books. I'm going to get lost." And I'm like, not going to start writing my story after the semester. I'm just going to read books. And I was like, is that not the writer's way, though? All of a sudden you're like caught up in reading source material and just like, I'm not going to write the script. I'm going to just read.
It's like a rebellion. Like, I'm not going to do this. But it needs to get done.
Procrastinating for my draft.
Oh, Arby is here, and we got Lagiacris here. Hello, friends. It's good to see you.
How are you doing?
My week, I've been doing pretty well. My week has been pretty busy. However, I have successfully carved out some me time. Like today was definitely a me day. I got to do some gardening stuff. I got to do some writing today, and I got to do some YouTube videos today, which was really nice. Additionally, I have been working out too, which for me,
getting those muscles on.
Not muscles at this point, just burning off these extra calories because I've been using like the treadmill, and I'm just like, I need to build up. I need to build up to getting to the point where I do weights again and stuff. Like so the other day, I like
shedding the winter hibernation.
The winter fluff, the winter floof.
Anyway,
no,
sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say. So we have like the treadmill on an incline, and I like power walked for a mile, and I was like, and I was just like, I need to get back into shape, because if I'm being winded by that, there's a problem. So yeah.
I don't remember the last time I walked by.
Oh, but look at all that you did last year. You were entitled to a break.
No, it doesn't work like that.
I know. So, do we want to do this show mission statement and then get started?
Oh my God. So, are you sure you want me to read it?
I do.
Okay. Sure. So, okay. I'm really excited. I'm really excited that I was jumping the gun. That's why I was interrupting you. I was like freaking out about reading the mission
The
statement again.
anticipation, I know.
I swear to God. I swear to God. So here we go. Here we go. Are you gonna do praying hands?
I will be doing praying hands, yes.
Okay, here we go. We live in a dynamic society where social media shapes us by creating greater opportunities for connection. It has led to a developing understanding of the adversity many marginalized communities face, the powers causing the adversity, and those who act as bystanders as atrocities take place in real time. Our goal with this show is to make connections and have challenging conversations about social topics, current events, pop culture, and art. Together, let's weave the threads of understanding with what privilege we have in order to learn, educate, and create in a world that's growing.
I have it memorized, like half memorized. So I was like reciting it with you in my head. Good
It's so
job, yay.
it's so weird. It's so weird to read it.
I know, but we're on what season are we on? Season 4.
Season 4.
I should have we should have been switching off on it before. That was me being micromanaging. So bad me.
No, it's not, no, it's just like that was always your thing, and my thing was doing praying hands, and so now we're doing role reversals. Oh my
I
goodness,
love
what do we
it.
do
It's
now?
kind of it's like putting us on the spot kind of.
No.
Okay. So there are so many current events, Ari. I think the first thing that we should talk about is the fact that well, the New York DA just announced that a grand jury has voted to indict Trump.
Oh my goodness. And
Hmm.
we've been here before. We've been here before, gotten our hopes like, in a bunch. Like, so that, but like I shouldn't care. We shouldn't care. I shouldn't care about Trump. Because Trump is like such a to me it's like such a non-person to anymore. Like he's kind of out of the spotlight. He's not president anymore. Like, but there's this looming threat that he might run for president again. But would he win is the thing. Like, would he win if he ran for president again? I don't think so. I don't think that he would be given the amount of airtime that he got before. I don't think that he would be given the same amount of deference that he got during the 2020 election or the 2016 election. I just don't think that the I feel like the atmosphere would be a lot different if he tried to run for president again. I think that the amount of I think that it was just sort of a fluke that he ran for president and won. Um,
Right, yeah.
so I just don't. I think that he kind of got like it was sort of like he kind of it was sort of like it almost feels like he signed a deal with the devil. He sold his soul to the devil, and
Hmm.
like he kind of got his wish. He was always like, yeah, I want to run. I want to be the president for 4 years, and the devil was like, done.
Here's what you need, what to sacrifice. So Lagiakris asks, what does indict mean? To indict someone basically means to seriously charge or charge someone with like a serious crime, essentially. Indignant winter bird.
That's M.
Hi, M. It's good to see you. He still shapes our politics, so you can't really ignore him. I think that's probably the big issue, right? Like, rhetorically speaking, he has such a significant rhetorical influence over large swaths of people still. And even for those that he doesn't have like a huge influence over, what he says still garners some sort of reaction out of them. And that kind of like feeds into like this cruel cycle of react, shock value, like, oh my God, and
It is true that he does definitely have. It's hard to ignore the fact that this man does have influence, and that he has a cult of followers that will follow. I mean, people are writing articles of whether or not he can run for president in jail. I'm like That's so horrifying to me that there are people who would vote for him in like that's such a real possibility that people would vote for him in jail.
hmm,
Like just the amount of to me that's just like a level that's just like not Like, that's insanity. That's insanity. That to me is the definition. Like, that people don't care about his reputation enough to the point of where they would just be like, that's my man. That's my man. I'll pay your bail. I'll pay your bail.
But that's part of the cruel reality that we're living in, though. This reality where, like, if anyone encourages accountability or expects accountability, they're referred to as being the woke mob, right? Where, like, they're just attempting to villainize someone, and it becomes like this back and forth rhetorical, game that's played, and it's again like a cruel cycle, and it baffles me that accountability is just
I feel like his
gone.
cult is just, it's so toxic. It's just like I feel like they're just so used and abused by him. And like, I don't think that they even realize just how much he uses him for that. He drains them of money. He drains them of, and he uses them as his own personal army. Like, literally, he sent them to the Capitol to go storm the doors of the Capitol to do his evil bidding. And it's like, do they even see what they're doing? Like, do they even realize that it is sort of like, I feel like the day is going to come. I maybe this is just me saying this, but the day is going to come when they're going to wake up and they're going to realize
Like
how
the
badly he's
reality for
how
how
badly
things
he
are.
has used and abused them. The
Mhm.
day is going to come, and that his day of reckoning is going to come. I just feel it.
I
Feel
do
it in my
too.
feel it in my gut that they're gonna that they're gonna turn on him, and when they turn on him, it's gonna be real ugly.
Right. Uh, M says he gives some people an excuse to act out their worst instincts. That's part of the rhetorical manipulation too. When you embolden behavior, like they learn that it's acceptable, so then they continue perpetuating it and perpetuating it and perpetuating it.
Yeah.
Lagiakris says Trump kind of reminds me of the overarching antagonist of a series I follow. The more and more I hear about him, now I think about it. Yeah, like I don't know. I think that like the last several years have been very unsettling, and I personally think that historians and political scientists and they're going to be looking at the last several years throughout history and being like, wow, like this literally happened, like this.
Sometimes it's not even what he says, it's what he implies. It's that he doesn't always say things outright. He doesn't always say, go do this. It's sometimes he just implies action and then they go do it. You know what I mean?
Right,
So it's
yeah.
sort of like he just heavily implies that, like, these people should pay. And then they're like, yeah, we should go do something. And he's just like,
But it's like coaxing, like in a way, like coaxing.
he's like, should you?
Right.
He's
So another, like, there have been a number of unsettling events this past week. There was another school shooting in Nashville, Tennessee. And if memory serves me correctly, 3 students were killed and 3 adults were killed, which again brings into the limelight the conversation that needs to be had about guns and like sensible gun protocols and legislation, so on and so forth. But of course, there's still whole swaths of people who are very resistant against that. And unfortunately, like another added layer to this being that, there are multiple states right now with anti-LGBTQ plus legislation. It was revealed that the shooter was trans. So now a lot of conservatives are weaponizing that as a talking point in order to justify these anti-LGBTQ plus bills. Case in point, I mean, we all know Marjorie Taylor Greene a couple of days ago posted something. I'm not even going to repeat the words, but posted something so horrible that basically said that this is the reason why these things happen, and that's horribly transphobic and completely glossing over the fact that this was a tragedy and completely glossing over the actual problem. So,
it's
what was
just
your reaction to everything?
So for me, because for me, I'm non-binary, so I fall under the trans umbrella. So I had a very interesting reaction to it. I follow a lot of trans women and trans people on Twitter. So, you know, there was a reaction that the first I saw of it was that, um, you know, that people try to make every crime about. Historically, there have been that people have always tried to demonize certain groups and try to make every crime about that certain group and try to show this propaganda to kind of bolster certain opinions about certain groups of people, as a way to defend certain justification of actions against these groups, historically. Um, that was my first kind of. So
Mhm.
then they showed this article as, the New York Post trans shooter in commits heinous crime, and it shows a picture of this shooter, and then it has a picture of a bus, and it shows a child like screaming in the background of the bus, and it's just like, it's just it was so sensational, and it was just like, there are so many trans people that I've met that are just trying to eke out a life for themselves. And so from my perspective of this situation, it's just like, yes, there are these extremes, examples that you'll get. There, I always there they always like to show the most extreme examples as a way, and like hold those up as like the cornerstones of, this is what everybody is like, and all trans people are like this, and all trans people are like that. And it's like, it's not analogous to what the average person is like, because the average person is just trying to exist and not be murdered when they walk down the street at night, or just
Mm.
trying to make sure that they don't get discriminated against at work, or just trying to make sure that they, can have the basic functions of their life, and just you know do trying to make sure that they don't get kicked out of their house by their parents if they're
Yeah.
a kid, or just trying to exist. And it's so difficult, because you watch these extreme examples, and they're just, it's so heartbreaking, because it's like, what sort of actions are going to be justified by this extreme example, that like, what sort of child beating, or what sort of acts of violence are going to be perpetrated against members of this community, because they're afraid of trans people now. Like, oh, this person, I see trans people as now a potential shooter, so now I'm going to go out and I'm going to shoot every trans person. It's sort of like that justification. These extreme
Mhm.
examples make
Yeah.
people afraid and fearful and angry and violent. And so it's sort of like, it's just that people don't think about they do think about this. The people in power who create these articles try to justify these things, and then it creates more problems for the community of people who are just already extremely vulnerable, making them more vulnerable.
No, it's so true. It's so true. And the thing is, like, and we're gonna be talking about, of course, J.K. Rowling tonight, but, like, the trans community is already continually equated to being predators, right?
Hmm.
So now on top of that, like, because of these, pundits and publications, they're now being regarded as also having a potential ability to, murder people. And
Or
mind
just,
you, like,
or that they're mentally ill, or that they're
right.
all mentally ill, or that they, I mean, that's kind of always been a thing, but there, I mean, being trans, it was taken out of the DCM DSM 4. It was finally taken on the DSM 5. So this is only within the last like 30 years that last 20 years that they finally take it out of the book as being a mental illness.
Right, yeah. So I guess this is a pretty good segue into talking about J.K. Rowling, right? Um, so, like, if we reflect on what she's most known for, I mean, many of you have probably heard the name before, but J.K. Rowling is the author of the Harry Potter series and has other publications as well. Um, very popular, very famous. Um, so I guess, like, if we were to, like, just begin the conversation, were you or are a fan of the Harry Potter series?
So I didn't read it when I was a child. I read it as an adult. But a lot of my friends in college were huge, huge Harry Potter fans. And so I have a Harry Potter tattoo on my feet. I have mischief and I have managed on my feet. Um, you know, I I read the Harry Potter series. I wasn't like an overwhelming Harry Potter fan. I watched most of the Harry Potter movies growing up in high school, like throughout high school. Um, I it was quaint. I felt it was quaint, but I wasn't like a Potterhead. I throughout my late high school, I went on Potter. I was one of those people who went on Pottermore, and I found out what house I was, Ravenclaw.
I'm
Um,
a Ravenclaw too.
I know. It's ever if you're a millennial, you just knew what house you
Right.
were. It's that's part of one of those like conversation starters is that everybody in our generation just knew what house they were. Everybody in our generation has probably read the books. Everyone in our generation has probably got some kind of paraphernalia from the Harry Potter series. It's just part of being in that generation is that it's so prevalent that you can't be a millennial without having Harry Potter touched your life in some way. And I feel like it's such a pop culture phenomenon that and it's shaped our lives. It's shaped my life in such a way that it's just kind of eked into this our psyche in some way. Like it's just
Yeah.
it's there's so many references to it in all of pop culture, and there's for such a long time Harry Potter was just there were so many jokes and there were so many movies references to it, and it's just so prevalent in our generation. Like so many jokes, so many references, so many little things here and there, like so many
Yeah.
conversations that I've had about Harry Potter, about the philosophy of Harry Potter, about just being in Harry Potter, about growing up and not getting your letter. Like people have talked about actively about what it would be like to finally get that letter and go to Hogwarts. Like, I
Yeah.
mean, like people have actively mourned that as millennials. Like I've seen people make vlogs about that, and like so it's affected me as an adult. Like I personally haven't like felt the sadness of that, but like I seeing all of these people around me, it's affected me in some way or another, and I felt certain ways about it um, because it's so. I mean, I watched Neil Sickeguy's the Potter Pals, the little puppet pals. I used
Yeah.
to watch that all the time. I used to quote the tick. What's that ticking noise? You know,
Oh,
uh,
I remember
Snape,
that. Yeah.
Snape Severus, Snape Dumbledore,
Dumbledore. Yep, I remember
right?
that. That was so. It's interesting because for me, I Harry Potter was never like a huge thing to me. Like I read the books and I watched the movies and I enjoyed them, and everything like that. But I always gravitated more toward like Tolkien, Lord of the Rings. Like that was my escape. But
But
there are
even in the Lord of the Rings movies, they still reference Harry Potter. There's still Harry Potter references in the Lord of the Rings movies.
They like vice versa, very much so, definitely. But the thing is that I have so many people in my life who have been influenced by the books, the franchise as a whole, right? Like where like they used to write fan fiction, or they like it used to be like their go-to, their world to escape from, right? Or their world to escape to, I mean. And I can't imagine like what many people are feeling in the realization that J.K. Rowling has become like a very, very, very
But it's
problematic
hard not to
person.
watch a Harry Potter movie growing up and just not feel the wonder and the joy of a Harry
Oh
Potter
yeah,
movie
for sure.
when you were a kid. Like when you were like when it first came out, there watching the uh what's the first movie called? The Sorcerer's Stone. Watching
Sorcerer's
the
Stone, yeah.
Sorcerer's Stone, um, feeling the wonder and joy when it first came out, that is real. That is a real feeling. When I was a kid, at least watching that,
Mhm.
when they all cheer at the end and they all, it's that's a real feeling when you were a kid.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like I remember like my friends and I, we would go to like book release parties, like little like at bookstores and stuff like that. Like it was an interesting time. Like it was an and I think that it still is such an important cornerstone for people. I do want to get to the comments really quickly. Lagiakra says, I know I have family members who love Harry Potter, but I never got into it myself. Also hearing about how bad Rowling is, I wasn't sure if I should get into it. I like how the actors know too. Like, oh yeah, the Harry Potter actors are very much aware of how problematic Rowling is. However, there were some that also were very supportive of her too throughout all of this. Um, I'm not sure if she's the highest paid author, but I wouldn't be surprised if she was up there among the highest paid for sure. And then M says Rowling is a prime example of saying never meet your hero. Oh yeah, that
I
sits
feel like
heavily.
that's such a common thing to say now, though. Is I I wasn't into Harry Potter, but I know someone who was. I wasn't into Harry Potter because it's sort of like there's a little bit of shame involved in being liking Harry Potter today. You know what I mean? That
Right.
is I don't know if I necessarily, and maybe it's just that we're retroactively like changing it in our minds that we don't want to be associated with Harry Potter because of what it's become.
Right. It's like and I keep always juggling around the idea of like should I still enjoy it? Like should I still take any sort of joy in being exposed to that world? And honestly, I don't really know an answer to that question.
Well, can you separate the art from the artist?
Well, and then that also begs the question of should we separate the art from the artist,
Well,
right?
let's go through your wonderful examples that you have.
So so like obviously if we were to ask how J.K. Rowling has become increasingly problematic, it's because she's been very vocal and as a very transphobic person. And if there is an article on Vox that overviews like all of the different situations in
I
which
think
she's
this,
been
and also it has to do with the fact that because the initial Harry Potter, there were problems with the initial story itself. The initial story itself um, does have its issues, especially with the goblins, as far as like how they tackle the 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 way that they kind of relate to like the Jewish community.
Mhm.
That has there's some problems with the original series in and of itself, but the
Yeah.
fact that she goes through and retcons everything, the fact that she retcons everything, and the because she starts building this Pottermore is really where it starts, honestly, in my opinion.
Mhm.
She starts the website. She has Pottermore. She wants people to get involved in because she's trying to stay relevant.
Oh
Because
yeah.
all the movies have come out, all of the books have come out. She's trying to stay on top and make more money. So she
Mhm.
builds Pottermore. And so you go on the website and you're on Pottermore. she starts retconning things, like saying Dumbledore was gay and all sorts of things. Just random little things that weren't in the original series, but there's things that she started. But then she gets on Twitter. She starts talking.
Oh yeah. No, the thing is, like, Rowling is supportive of the LGB portion of the community, but not the T
Well,
at all.
she claims to be a feminist.
Right. So I do want to get to the list. So here is a comprehensive list of all the ways that J.K. Rowling has been transphobic. And this is based on an article out of Vox called J.K. Rowling's Transphobia, like a historical overview. First and foremost, she has expressed transphobic perspectives and opinions in both interviews and blog posts, increasingly more so over the last 3 years. In 2014, she wrote a book titled The Silkworm, featuring a trans woman who was portrayed as conspicuous and unable to pass.
Which is really gross in and of itself. If you think about it, like, you know, being able to pass should not require like your validity as a trans person. Like being able to be clocked, like it should not, you know what I mean? Like that's just like really gross. And like it's just,
no, I agree 100%.
like,
well, and so she then began tweeting more so about being transphobic. Do you want to talk a little bit about like her justification for her transphobia, like what her argument and her side is?
So a lot of this is kind of like a lot of like TERFs and like a lot of people surrounding her on Twitter and like in her community believe in is biological determinism, and it has a lot of different connotations, but it's sort of like they believe that you are who you're going to be from a fetus. So you basically, like, when you are conceived, it's who you're going to be as an adult. So like it has, I was telling Donny about this, it has like Gattaca type, so it's like genetic determinism. It has kind of I feel like there's a lot of racial undertones to this too, because there's a lot of like, so who you are as a fetus is who you grow up to be as an adult. So like your intelligence and your ability, the link I used said your ability to like memorize a poem would be because of your genetics. And it's sort of like your ability, the fact that you are conceived. But the fact is that when you're conceived, you don't, it's such a faulty argument, because when you're conceived, it's not determined, like it's not sure whether or not you're actually going to be male or female until like several weeks into. So it's crazy. It's crazy because it's not automatically determined whether or not you're going to be male or female right away. Like it branches off, and like anyway, it's crazy. It's a crazy argument.
It is a crazy argument. And like, and the thing is though, like the big problem is that people have seen that argument and they've latched onto it, because the truth is Rowling has a very, very huge support. Like there are so many people.
It doesn't even take into account like intersex, like the fact that sometimes people are born and like they're in the middle, like sometimes they're not quite male and they're not quite female, and like what does that biological determinism say about that? Like the fact that like sometimes they just have to, like doctors have to make a decision, and like they decide that they're going to be one sex, and it's sort of like they just decide because they kind of look at the parts and they go, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Wait, I don't know what, and they ask the parents, what sex do you want your child to be, because they're kind of in the middle.
Right. Yeah. No, like it's true. And I don't know, like if the list goes on though, like the list of her support of like anti-trans perspectives. So she then supported a TERF by the way, like TERF stands for what does it stand for? I keep forgetting the acronym. Is it trans exclusionary radical feminism?
Yeah, TERF.
Yeah, I couldn't remember what the acronym stands for.
Which, if you ask them, they'll say is a slur.
Right. Yeah. Well, so Rowling supported someone with those perspectives during a legal matter in 2019, sharing in this person's transphobic views. In June 2020, Rowling mocked the trans-exclusive term "people who menstruate," and then posted a thread criticizing that LGBTQ plus people, or that the LGBTQ plus community is, quote, erasing the concept of biological sex. End
Which,
quote.
it's because they want to, they don't understand gender and sex. It's sort of like yeah, it's it's like they just want everything to stay the same way as it. They're very they're very third wave feminism, where they're
Yeah.
just like, or is it second wave feminism? It's just like they
I
want.
think it's second wave because that's the
There's,
wave that's not inclusive,
I
right?
think we're in third wave feminism right now, but
Mhm.
they're very second. They're very old wave feminism, where they just want things to be a very specific way, and it's that they don't want that intersectionality between, and they're just so scared about there's something, it is always, you know what it is, it's always white women, always white cis white
Yeah.
women. They're always just afraid of losing, is that it's linked to white supremacy. They're always afraid of losing that inkling of power that they've built up for themselves, you know what I mean?
Oh
they're
yeah.
always afraid they're always afraid of losing that a little bit of power that they've built up for themselves, in their little heads. And so, they see losing that power. They see trans women as a threat to their because they don't see trans women as women. They see them as men who are taking away their power, which is such a weird, faulty idea.
Right. But it all comes back down to equating the trans community to predatory behavior,
Right.
because later down on the list, that's what one of the things that Rowling does. She equates the trans community to predatory behavior, and of course, that's the age old way of.
But it's always trans women that they're focused on. They don't ever focus on.
Mhm.
It's very rare that they focus on like trans men. Like that to them is not seen as such a threat to them. That is not as threatening as trans women, because again, it's usually cis white women who see trans women as a threat to their femininity and their threat to their
Right.
livelihood, because
Misogyny.
it's misogyny.
Internalized
It, it's
misogyny.
trans it's trans misogyny. It's
Mhm.
saying that that they'll lose some kind of power that they somehow have, that they're somehow, that they somehow, some kind of control that they have. That
King. Sorry, Katie is
I know
is rustling.
my cat's starting to wander around and starting to bug me
Do
too.
we need a cat meow or not? Maybe not.
You need to let your cat out.
I think I do. 1 second.
Okay.
Go on. Oh, these cats. What would we do without them?
It's okay. We needed a
So,
second to kind of bring down.
right, because this is a heavy topic. Okay, so here are a few other items on the list. She
The only
released.
turf that's good is AstroTurf. And even that's questionable.
So she released a book under the pen name of Robert Galbraith titled Troubled Blood, which features a villain who preys on women by wearing women's clothes, depicting what many argue is her view as a predatory trans woman.
I heard a rumor that that book did horrible, like did not sell at all, and it didn't start selling well until she actually like revealed that she was actually the author. Like I heard that it that's how it is with all of her adventures, is that she tries to like sell, she tries to like make it seem like her books don't sell until she like reveals that she's like the author, and until she like attaches her name to it, and then she's like, and then they'll start to like kind of sell, but they don't sell as well as the Harry Potter series. The Harry Potter
Oh,
series is her bread and butter.
Yeah, definitely. Let's see. In December 2020, she claimed that 90% of Harry Potter fans agree with her anti-trans views, which is very inaccurate.
But that's the
Uh,
thing, like that's what I'm talking about. Separating the art from the artist. Can you separate the art from the artist? If she's saying things like 90% of my readers believe in the same things that I do.
yeah, like that's very concerning to hear somebody say. And to me, like, because there are still people who try to justify, it's like, well, she doesn't know, she's not educated. That's willful. Like that is literal deliberate.
But that's the same
That's
thing as like
deliberate
Trump.
commentary.
But that's the same thing as like Trump too. You get Trump saying things like 90% of my people who follow me believe in everything that I do.
Mm-hmm.
And it's sort
Yeah.
of like, if you can't follow people like Trump or Rowling, and it's sort of like the fact that he's like super racist. Trump is like super racist too. And if you follow Trump, he's racist, he's sexist, he's homophobic. Like you can't follow people like Trump and be like I like him, but I don't like his personal beliefs. And it's like 90% of the people believe the same things that I do. And it's like, yeah,
Yeah.
it's
It's
like,
like, how do you justify that? Like that you can't, like, even though they try to justify it. The next thing, uh, in 2022, Rowling releases the book The Ink Black Heart, which Rowling Mary sues herself in as a character in the role of someone who is canceled for anti-trans views, and then the character, my understanding from what I've read, dies.
so she just came out on a podcast just recently that was called The Witch Trials of J.K. Rowling. Did you hear about that?
I I can't right now. What?
Yeah, she was
I
just
don't.
on a pod. She was just on, and so people on Twitter were like, "Why are you're not being persecuted?" She was like, "Where did I say that I was being persecuted, and that I was being that I was part of a that I was being that this was a witch trial?" And it was like, you were on a podcast called The Witch Trials of J.K. Rowling. It was like, but and that's so funny because it's like and so people were like, there was somebody who was on YouTube who paid money to get the Guinness Book of World Records for most 5Ks run in a witch costume. And she did it because she wanted to, she's a turf. She's a turf. And she said that the reason why she ran in the witch costume is because um, she was persecuted like all of her previous all of the witches of the past. And so it is sort of like that being a turf is being that is sort of like she's persecuted like all of the witches for having her turfy views. She could put it like that, but having her views against trans women.
Right. It's just wild to me. I like, and honestly, this book, The Ink Black Heart, where she like literally writes her story, basically, like it just baffles me, like that somebody would write that.
But could you imagine paying $800 and dressing up in a witch costume and saying the fact that like someone a turf dressed up said that they were being persecuted for saying that trans women shouldn't exist. So she dresses up and says she has this idea that saying trans women shouldn't exist. I hate trans women. Trans women are not real. Trans women are less than like all of these like terrible ideas about trans women, that trans women are not actually like a thing, and that trans women basically should not exist, and that trans women are just in disguise or something, or that trans women are basically like the downfall of society. These horrible ideas, right? She has all of these horrible ideas, dresses up as a witch, pays money, pays over $800 to the Guinness Book of World Records to get to say that she is persecuted, that she is the one who is being persecuted, that she's the one who's persecuted. Just the weird ideas, that some people have about their, like, it's just like, what and what
I
like,
think in their warped reality, they think that if they can paint themselves as being more of a victim than the community that they are attacking, then somehow they will get more attention, more exposure, more sympathy.
it's just, I don't understand. I don't understand stuff like
I don't
that.
either. I don't
It's
either.
just like, do they think about their arguments logically? Like, do they think they're like, oh yeah, I'm the victim. I'm the victim here. I'm the one, like, they're the ones who are attacking me. I'm the victim here. It's just, it's so weird. It's so weird. Like,
So well, I was just gonna say it doesn't end there though either. Like this list though, like late 2022, Rowling compares trans activism to religious dogma. There was this whole thing that happened where there's a YouTuber I follow, Jessie Gender, who basically was like attacked by Rowling and like had stuff retweeted and shared, and there was like other situations where doxing happened and everything because of Rowling's following and exposure. And horrible, but of course she found ways to justify it. January 2023, just a couple of months ago, Rowling compared the trans community to predatory rapists.
I don't understand that. Like, the fact that trans people are just trying to exist, just trying to have a normal life, just trying to have a normal life,
Mm-hmm.
just trying to exist, just trying to live their life. My kitten. If you could see my kitten right now.
Larity, what are you doing?
He's pawing at me. He's just being cute.
I love him.
Don't you push down my camera. But they're just trying to exist. They're just trying to exist, trying to live their lives, just trying to get by, and just trying to be treated as human beings, with dignity and respect, and not be made fun of, not be treated as the butt of the joke, not be treated as subhuman, not be treated as a threat, or treated with violence, not be treated, like, just be treated neutral, like, be in a public space and be treated neutrally. Like, and it's that's not, sometimes not even the case. Like, sometimes the amount of vehemence that they get treated with, just for simply being in a public space, is overwhelming. Just like, and it's just it's so, and like, just the amount of like, so I have a friend who is trans, and he had some issues before, like, I don't know how much I want to say, but like, he's been met with violence before for just simply existing, just existing in a public space. And it's just like, it's you have to be so careful. You have to be so careful.
You do.
And it's
Yeah.
so hard. And then, like, I just know so many people. It's just like, you. I've heard so many stories. I've just heard so many stories about so many people who just, like, just existing, just receiving death threats for just living, and just trying to be themselves, and just put themselves out there, and just trying to live their lives, and just be authentically themselves. Like, you ever hear the old adage, just be yourself? And it's sort of like,
Yeah.
these people are trying to be themselves, and like it's met with such rage and such anger and such hate, and it's like I don't think they understand
It's
about
so it to me it's very colonizing. Like if like one group of people in power sees another marginalized group simply trying to exist,
but the fact is
their
that
perspective.
cis white women don't see themselves in a position of power. They see themselves as the victims. That's the thing.
It's
That's
well,
what they're trying to
yeah.
play themselves out as, is the victims, and that they're the they often play themselves as the weaker person, as somebody who is not in a position of power because they don't have the ultimate power of cis white heterosexual males.
Hmm. I mean,
So
it's true that they have some disadvantages and stuff because of patriarchy, right? But any person with any amount of privilege can weaponize whatever privilege they have and not
right,
even be aware of it.
and they often do. They
And they
often
often
do.
do. Yep. Yeah. And then of course we have like what the new Harry Potter Legacy video game, right?
Oh my God, don't even get me. So there's a character named Serona Ryan, Serona Ryan, who shortened their name to Sir Ryan. Their name literally shortened to Sir Ryan. And there have been some accusations that the voice of the voice actor, the voice actor for this game is a trans woman, and I mean, she's a trans woman, so she has a. I mean, I wouldn't say she has a deep voice. She has just a regular voice. Like I wouldn't say, but it sounds like in the game that they've deepened her voice, like in post. Her voice sounds a lot different than it does. Like it doesn't sound like her. It sounds much different than it usually does. Like if you listen to video clips of her and then the game of her, it doesn't sound the same. Like it sounds like they changed her voice. And
I wouldn't be surprised if they did.
but that's disgusting to me if they did. It
Oh, it
just
is disgusting.
But maybe that's just the video game, but there was accusations on Twitter that they deepened her voice, and that they did some wonky stuff to her voice, uh, and that they made it sound like not her.
Right. Yeah. So, would you like okay, obviously despite quote unquote having been canceled for being transphobic, like
Oh, the witch trials.
right, like Rowling is still thriving. So, do you think that she
Is she
survived being canceled?
is she thriving though? Is
Oh.
she? I feel like I feel like she has been slowly doing this to herself. That she does this all the time. What she'll do is and she always stirs the pot just before something comes out, because the game was coming out. She was stirring the pot just before the game came out. She
Mm,
was really stirring up the transphobia pot. And so she just, because what she's trying to do is stir up controversy as a way of, I mean, she has these views, like there's no denying that, but she definitely will stir the pot a little bit more just before something comes out, as a way to like cause controversy, and as a way to like get people to like chatter about her and the game, and like whether or not they're going to buy the game, and whether they might buy it as a hate response, and just like it it caused controversy about the game, and to like make it so that it's sort of like a kind of like a talking point. It's sort of like she does these things as a sometimes a calculated move. So
mhm.
it feels very calculating at times. It's kind of Trump like too. Trump does these things and it's very calculating at times. And
It is.
it feels like it's not just them acting wildly, and that they're not just doing these things. It's sort of like she knows that her fan base knows about her opinions, and so she does these
Mm.
things to kind of stir up other people as a way to get people to other people who might not have heard about her in a while to kind of like getting talking about her again, and sort of like,
Well, that, and not to mention she's been very vocal about like how problematic cancel culture is, and there are large swaths of people who attach to that rhetoric, right? That cancel culture is like this horrible thing that, is being weaponized against people. I guess do you think that cancel culture is inherently bad? Where did it begin? Like,
I don't think anybody should buy her stuff anymore. I don't think anybody should buy Harry Potter stuff anymore, because if you support Harry Potter in any aspect, it's touch of death.
there's
I
still
think that
royalties. Yeah.
I think that anything Harry Potter, because it has aged terribly. The initials, because of all of the retconning that she's done, it's not the beautiful. It's a garbage dump now. It anything Harry Potter is simply a garbage dump now. It's
Mhm.
because of what she has made it, because it's been over mass produced, because of just everything. If you, I just think that if you are trying to enjoy Harry Potter now, it's really just that you are trying to recreate the nostalgia that you originally had when you first read or encountered the series, and you're just not going to find it anymore. You're just not going to find that original joy.
Yeah, will it be fulfilling as it used to be with the knowledge that we have now? Like, I personally wouldn't be like, if one of my favorite authors I found out ended up being like this, like, it would be very hard for me to actually absorb and digest the
especially
content.
especially since they created art after this that was so very clear about how their views are, and
Mhm.
that their art touches their views, that their views are so inherent in their art, that
Right.
it is so indistinguishable for them, that they've written, and you've shown how many times they've written books and written pieces about how they are transphobic, and they've written piece like fiction that has shown how transphobic they are. You cannot separate the art from the artist. They are transphobic through and through, art and otherwise. It
Yeah.
you cannot
Well,
it
all the signs that are peppered through everything, you can't ignore that. I mean,
and
and
maybe
now maybe they're a little bit more apparent than they used to be.
maybe she didn't write about transphobia during Harry Potter because maybe she didn't know about it then, but maybe if she had known about it then, she probably would have written it in.
Right.
And that's
Yeah.
that's the that's the only saving grace, is that she was ignorant back then, but if she had known about it then, she probably would have written about it.
Well, and if she was really ignorant, there would have been a change by now. Like literally, she would have gone back and made amends and fixed things. But clearly, that choice has not been made, right? And I think we're at a point where it's gone so far. Where like that, how would that even be feasible for someone like her to do? And the thing is, like, going back to cancel culture in itself, like, I mean, obviously there is a lot of criticism against cancel culture, and I do think that there are times where it can be weaponized against people, but I also think that cancel culture is there to simply hold people accountable when they do horrible things, because I feel like we genuinely have like this optimistic view of humanity where if they are called out for something, that they will like do what's right and, correct the issue and learn from the experience. But there are people like Rowling who,
Like I've said before, I feel like there's just always going to be, when you get to a certain level of fame, there's just no ability to cancel somebody entirely, because there's always going to be that one person who's like,
yeah.
I'm going to
Well, and I
follow
think
them no matter what.
that's exactly where she is. Like she's very powerful and is beyond like the effects of cancel culture,
But
and it's horrible.
what I'm hoping is that we get to the point of where enough people just do not financially support her enough, that people will stop backing her. Like, people will stop publishing her books and just be like, I can't support you. I can't support your, like, these publishing houses won't publish your books anymore.
So I have another question for you. What if Rowling 20 years from now decided to actually be accountable and come out and publicly apologize? Do you think that that would be simply for performance, or do you think that she should genuinely...
She would never do it.
Part of me doesn't think she would either.
No.
I do kind of grieve for Harry Potter fans. I really do. I grieve for them because something that was so personal and so integral to their...
It was never a really great series in and of itself. It's just that we were so young and that we didn't think critically about the series originally. But looking back at the series, if you reread it, it's not that great.
Yeah. It's just the memories. Like, those memories are so important, and
it's just that we first encountered it without a critical eye. If you read it without a critical eye, it's a pretty great series. But if you start reading it and you actually like dissect it, it's actually a really horrible series.
Mm-hmm.
And like as you get older and like you start to actually look at Harry Potter with some level of literary criticism, Harry Potter is actually like one of the worst series out there for young people. It's not a very good work of fiction. It's actually a pretty horrible work of fiction.
Well, not to mention now that, like, we know, I mean, obviously we've known that this person actively seeks out and verbally assails the trans community in a whole variety of different ways. Like, that has to be weighed into the equation too. So at the end of the day, I would argue that one of the main reasons we wanted to talk about this tonight is because over the past several years, the trans community has been forcibly placed in a very vulnerable position due to people in power like her who have been vocally speaking out against the community. And the truth is, like, people with power like that, when the people who idolize them see what they're saying, like, they're going to go along with it, and that just makes it all the more dangerous for the community, the trans community. So
my final thought is, I hope Harry Potter dies with our generation. I hope no further generations know or care about Harry Potter at all. I hope this is just like a fluke with our generation. I hope it's not persistent.
Right. And my final thought is also, like, the memories are there, the nostalgia, the wonder is there, but it is fully acceptable and okay to examine the series with a critical eye. I think it's necessary. Like, it's absolutely necessary. And to examine the behavior of a person, of very public behavior, with a critical eye too, you know. So I know, like, we've had a lot of like fun episodes the last few episodes, and this one's kind of a heavier one, but the topic is important, and we're glad that you were here to listen to us through this. Just know that we love you, and we will be
also back. Turfs can suck it.
I was waiting for a flourish in the end. We love you all. We hope you have a good night. Click like, share our episode, comment below, and of course, subscribe to our respective channels. Have a good rest of your night. Bye. Bye. Mwah. Mwah. Mwah.